Yeah, this happened a while ago. I was awake. I was like, yeah, do I want to make a video about that? It's an AHL signing. It's a PTO. But then I ended up taking a nap. And I woke up and I was like, oh, I guess, well, I have to make a video about it. It's been a while since we had uploaded that last video here on the channel. So let's go out there and talk about the Vancouver Canucks and the newest contract signing that was announced by Patrik Allvin. No, it's not a contract signing with the Vancouver Canucks. It's actually with the Abbotsford team. But if you go over onto Twitter, you'll find this. Vancouver Canucks GM Patrik Allvin announced today that forward Sammy Blais has signed a contract with the AHL's Abbotsford Canucks and has also been invited to Vancouver Canucks training camp on a PTO. Now, Sammy Blais is a really interesting name, and I think one of the first replies goes out there and kind of illustrates this. Blues Muse went out there and said this: he is really bad. Hopefully doesn't play regularly on your team. He's okay depth, I guess. Now you can see this tweet has 14 replies, a bunch of people going out there and saying, yeah, but it's a PTO, man, calm your horses, calm down. And like, that's true. When it comes to Sammy Blais, this is not really an important signing for Vancouver. PTO guys, AHL Abbotsford guys, but the profile of Sammy Blais is always going to stand out to me because this was the guy that was traded over to New York in the Pavel Buchnevich trade of, when was that, 2021? Yeah, that was a really big deal, and a lot of people were kind of confused as to the philosophy there, because back in 2021, Pavel Buchnevich was this really capable, talented scorer, and a lot of people were super excited to see him go over to St. Louis. And to his credit, I mean, Pavel Buchnevich has been fantastic with the St. Louis Blues. Sammy Blais, on the other hand, went over to New York and was pretty much nothing. And I'm sorry, I don't want to devalue a guy's time in the National Hockey League, but look at this, man. Sammy Blais with the Rangers had 4 points in 14 games, then he had 5 points in 40 games. Why was it that the New York Rangers traded what was an inevitable 70-point guy in Buchnevich for Sammy Blais of all people? Well, you could say it was because they wanted to fight back against Tom Wilson. You can say that the identity of the Rangers getting shoved around and beaten down, they wanted to fight against that. And it's why they ended up getting some certain guys. They got Ryan Reeves, they got Sammy Blais, and it was a really weird sort of development here. Here's a reply on Twitter that goes out there and asks and answers it pretty well. What happened to him? I remember when he first broke out with the St. Louis Blues, he was a menace, and it seemed like he had a bright future as a middle six energy guy. He was traded in the Buchnevich trade and was awful with the Rangers. I believe he didn't score a single goal with them. He came back to us, the St. Louis Blues, at the trade deadline in 22-23 and did pretty well, 20 points in 30 games, but it was pretty obviously a fluke. Then this previous season, some people who expected big things out of him, but he was really bad. All he does is hits. I don't know how he stayed on an NHL team. And Blais actually did have that little stint of success towards the end of 2022-2023, 20 points in 30 games played. That's the level of production that you really would not have expected out of this guy. I mean, he bursted and blew past his career high in NHL points in one 30-game sample, which is nuts. This season, though, he had 7 points in 53 games played. Really not an NHL caliber offensive contributor, but a guy whom, if you want to have him in the lineup as a physical, no-nonsense, forechecking, aggressive kind of guy, he does his job. It's just, with the Sammy Blais contract status and with the trade status, I feel like there was, unfortunately, a higher label of demand attached to him the moment he was traded for Pavel Buchnevich. Like, okay, Buchnevich is a fantastic scorer, and Blais is the guy that got traded for him, so automatically Blais has to provide more value than a regular old checking bottom six caliber guy should be able to provide, right? And I think a lot of people fell into that trap. They tried to justify the trade. A lot of people like myself said, okay, the trade kind of sucks for St. Louis, or not for St. Louis, for New York, excuse me. You're trading away Buchnevich for this dude? Really? Like, it was quite obvious right away that the trade was not going to be seen as a good one for New York, but you know, you kind of have to try to justify these things when they happen, just so it doesn't look like a terrible idea. So the Rangers and their fans, they tried to justify it. They wanted to believe in Blais. They had potential and hopes in this guy, but it just did not work out. Then he found himself back in St. Louis. Then he became a free agent. Now he's coming over to Abbotsford. The thing is, though, heading over to Vancouver Canucks training camp on a PTO, there is absolutely no expectations here for Sammy Blais to do anything. As we'd been talking about with Vasily Podkolzin the entire week, the Vancouver Canucks are pretty much set when it comes to the forwards. You count out the names: Pettersson, Miller, Höglander, Besser, Suter, Bluger, Garland, Joshua, DeBrusk, Sprong, Sherwood, Heinen, Oman, DiGiuseppe, and that is like 13 or 14 guys. The Vancouver Canucks really don't have any room for a guy like Sammy Blais to eventually sign a 1 year, $800,000 NHL deal to go along with his AHL deal. There isn't really any room for him. So if Sammy Blais, who is an Abbotsford contractee, is able to show up to Canucks training camp, he does well enough that he ends up beating out Oman, DiGiuseppe, and maybe puts him in a spot where Rick Tocchet's like, hey, this guy is one of the better options we have. If any of our other guys get injured, then okay, then he gets the contract and then he's able to play for the Vancouver Canucks, no biggie. But for now, there are no expectations, there are no standards that he needs to uphold because he is just an Abbotsford AHL contractee with a PTO for the main team. There are no losses here. Patrik Allvin said he doesn't want to overpay for anybody, and he pretty much only did that with one guy in Tyler Myers. For Sammy Blais here, this is a totally okay deal because it gives Canucks hockey more flexibility, and if he's actually good enough to stick around, then, hey, then he'll get rewarded with the contract. He has to prove himself, though, in training camp first. That is really it. He has to prove himself. So heading into next season, I don't think any Canucks fan is going to be super excited or seeing too much potential and overall projectability with Sammy Blais, but it's nice to have that guy there, right? It's nice to have extra options, and it's nice to have an extra body to push everybody else around him just a little bit harder. And who knows, if in training camp, if in a practice session, Sammy Blais is really aggressive, he's agitative, he gets under people's skin, and let's say he goes with Kiefer Sherwood and they balance each other out really nicely. I mean, if there's potential for a fourth line that's like Danton Heinen, and then you have Kiefer Sherwood, and then maybe Sammy Blais there, that could be a really versatile, offensively productive line with Heinen and Sherwood, with the bulldog and hard-nosed nature of a guy like Blais and Sherwood too. At that point, you kind of don't really need Vasily Podkolzin anymore. So, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Sammy Blais signing a PTO with the Vancouver Canucks and a regular AHL deal with the Abbotsford Canucks. Do you think this is a good move? Why? Why not? Are you on board with the signing? Let me know in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.